Hello and welcome to How to Achieve Availability Certainty Using Connected Parking Systems and Real-Time Data with All Traffic Solutions today. Today we'll be hearing from Jim Rhodes, our Enterprise Solutions Manager and Sales Representative with All Traffic Solutions. A few housekeeping rules. So today you'll be having a recorded version of this webinar will be available for your viewing convenience indefinitely. No registration required. You can just use the website link that we sent on to you to review it or to pass along to a colleague if you'd like. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out directly to Jim Rhodes at jrhodes@alltrafficsolutions.com. We will, however, be sending you the slides after the presentation, after your viewing presentation, in a thank you email. And please don't hesitate to share those slides or to share or retweet the presentation to anyone using ATS parking availability. So a little bit about All Traffic Solutions. All Traffic Solutions is a leader in connected parking solutions that leverage the Internet of Things. We really focus on how to manage the vehicle flow and safety in parking environment as well as in traffic and public safety. We offer parking flow as a service, real-time adaptive parking solutions that offer descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics, and really is an open, flexible, extensible, and modular platform. We're an advanced IoT platform that really was purpose-built for the IoT and parking industries. Today, we'll be hearing from Jim Rhodes. Jim Rhodes is a veteran of the parking world, having worked for years with firms on the leading edge of parking technology, including Zipcar, Spot Hero, and others. He works with our customers to develop solutions that are the best fit, right technology, that are able to leverage many different technologies to create sustainable, cost-effective, results-oriented parking availability and guidance solutions designed really for the right size, for the highest level of accuracy, 99% and above. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Inga. Good morning, everybody. A little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Parking availability for a long time has been really based on estimates and anecdotal information, and so we're going to talk today about why that's really no longer an option as we move into the next stage of parking and mobility and technology. We'll talk a little bit about what cloud technology is and the Internet of Things and how we can gain some efficiencies, save money, and deliver a better parking experience. We'll also talk about data and analytics and why those are keys to successful parking operation and implementation. And then we'll talk about where parking guidance fits into your success. Parking data and analytics are great, but how do we get people into available parking spaces? And then we'll talk about strategies for your organization as well, some tips that you can use when evaluating and implementing a system of your own. We like to roadmap things at our company, and one of the things that we do is we develop what we think of it as the perfect parking process using parking and availability data, or real-time parking and availability data. The goal with this slide here is to give you kind of a blueprint for how everything is impacted by real-time availability and real-time data. Citywide parking availability, so parking guidance if you're a municipality and you want to take people through your town or through parts of your town where you have special events or whatnot, and you want to let people know where to park. Parking guidance in a garage, level, space, nested areas. Dynamic pricing. So are there certain parts of the day where you want to have pricing change based on availability and premium offerings? Conditional messaging. So let's say you're running an airport and you have construction and you want to get people routed from the entrance to the facility or the exits to the facility, to parking or to the nearest freeway. Access control, so using license plate recognition or ALPR that helps identify people who should be entering into access controlled parking areas. Traffic routing, so what's it look like from downtown Chicago, for instance, where I sit, out to O'Hare Airport? What kind of time is it going to take you to get there? And then something that we have just recently gotten into, which is truck parking. So if you're an over-the-road truck driver and you're looking for a spot to rest, what available parking exists at rest stops or private travel centers. Availability data in real time impacts everything that you see on this slide. And I think it's important that we take a look at parking as not just a lot or a garage on a city block, but parking is something that impacts an entire city and the infrastructure around it. So, there are things that are impacted when you take a look at the bigger parking vision. And there are some challenges that come about when you don't have real-time availability data. And the first dot or icon on this slide, can't route parkers. Well, for a long time we've been using an outdated mindset. Like I said before, parking is no longer a garage or a surface lot. It is now a vital factor in mobility and guidance, and it's as much about navigating through a city as it is navigating through a garage. So routing is really critical in this instance. A lot of guidance is pretty awful. Signage, it's just there, but it's not designed to be helpful. A lot of legacy signage can even slow traffic by forcing people to slow down and look at information that's presented in a way that isn't very visible or easy to read. People don't want just a garage or a lot anymore, garage or lot information. They're looking for zones, specific zones, or even space-specific information in many cases. Retail, special events, VIP situations come to mind. No real availability data. What you were doing to understand availability isn't really going to work anymore. We don't really know what's going on within our premise. We have an idea. We tend to think anecdotally, but we don't necessarily know, down to an exact science what's happening at any given point in the day. A good example would be dwell rates. Parking for a long time at a shopping center could mean you're not really shopping, you're commuting. But you won't know this unless you have data or unless you were to watch each vehicle. And a lot of times that's not ideal from putting a person on the corner with a clicker. It does work much better in a sensor-based environment that drives that data in real time. Impact, flow, and productivity. I mean, forecasting, everybody would love to forecast accurately. It's almost impossible if you don't have the real data, the accurate data. Public safety seems to be addressed piecemeal in the parking world, but when you put in a guidance and accounting system where you can build something a little more automated, you can actually automate things like speed control, warnings about where pedestrians may be, warnings to pedestrians about where vehicles may be or where they're coming from. We've even encountered some garages, they still have somebody stand there with a clicker, and do counts to get an idea of what capacity is, and then they build their safety platform around that, or a safety policy. Sending people out to do manual counts. So if you send somebody out to do, every 4 hours, they take a look in the morning, they take a look a couple times in the afternoon, and then they take a look in the evenings. That still happens in this industry today. And then, there's also the use of loops. They're not that reliable. They tear up infrastructure. They take a little bit of time to install, and they can actually disrupt the facility for the time that it takes for installation and calibration and setup. So, we consider that old school. We've relied on good enough solutions, and as we move into the future, we want to move into more exact solutions that drive real change. And the problem is, with no real-time availability, you can't route people. You don't know where it's going to be full, so people go there anyway. You create traffic jams for everyone. You cause people to turn around, and that can cause an even bigger traffic jam, and you impact traffic flow and productivity. So, we look at 4 segments, and I'll go through them in the following slides. The first is commercial operators. Commercial operators are trying to reduce costs and increase profitability using real-time parking data. The folks who are doing that now are probably experiencing probably experiencing a little bit more growth, probably have a better customer experience. They're also trying to maximize yield with dynamic price, and it's driven by real-time data. You want to get the most out of every space that you have available. And then a lot of commercial operators also have apps, so they like to get some of their yield back through using their own apps and reservation systems. And real-time data can help drive all of this. Next up is municipalities. They face problems within their own ranks. You have an increase in headcount, office changes, consolidation, temporary space due to renovation or new construction. And changes in day-to-day impact where people go and park if they are significant enough. And then you have unseen issues, construction, events, weather. In municipalities, and a lot of the folks that we've talked to, they like to manage parking based on known factors. How much do we build to accommodate growth and potential growth? And they want to consider how they are impacted by community. A good example would be a big or a mid-sized company that comes into town, sets up a headquarters, and then pretty soon your parking lots are full and availability becomes a premium. How do you manage for that? And how do you manage that when it happens? And then they always want to consider their residents and anchor businesses. I mean, these are the people who help build the community and they keep the community stable. How do they use parking to aid economic development and quality of life for residents? Universities are interesting, and we've had quite a few conversations with them. They face similar problems. They have increasing student enrollment, especially at commuter schools, where you do have a lot of people who come on campus with a car. And so there isn't a lot of focus on parking availability until it becomes an issue. In a lot of cases, they're counting manually, so they actually have people in the security or facilities team that go out and do manual counts across surface and garage lots. And then, they'd love to increase student and staff satisfaction by making sure that they can get to class on time with real guidance, accurate guidance. And then they'd like to understand true availability. These universities make investments and they make planning decisions for either space that is typically unused or buildings that they'd like to renovate or update. And they'd like to use facts for that and not guess, and not every undeveloped parcel of land needs to be turned into parking. And I think that having real-time data benefits them in this mission. And then the last one is corporate. Companies, corporations, they want to get employees out of their cars and into their seats faster. Get them back into productivity mode when they get on the campus first thing in the morning, so that they're not, spending 25 minutes looking for a parking space and then their stress level is high and then they get behind the desk and they really don't start in a very positive or productive way. The companies also like to leverage technology that's already been implemented, and they'd like to future-proof the next investment. So if you already have a gate system and you want to put in a count system, you don't necessarily want to have to tear up the gate system. You want to be able to use that in addition to whatever you put in terms of new tech. They want to use the parking data to drive additional mobility and workplace transformation initiatives and mandates. So if you are at your capacity and you really don't have anywhere to build, you can still use a parking availability system to start to drive things like ride share, or you can drive things like flex time, and you can actually develop policies around how much parking you have and how much parking you would like to have. Companies that impact the public way also need to consider the communities that they're active in. So, you don't want your employees tying up traffic in the morning or the afternoons when they're coming and leaving work if your parking garage is located off of a public road. That doesn't make you a very good community neighbor, and it can also result in a pretty stress-free commute and parking experience for your employees and your visitors. So the big question is, what's my true availability? This can apply, as you can see here. We have listed garage, level, lot, space. I mean, this is kind of where you want to start garnering your data from. And so why accuracy matters. Inconvenience, that's a problem. Parking congestion keeps students from classes, shoppers from malls, employees from their desks, and truckers from delivering freight. So the solution is real-time parking guidance based on accurate and timely data. You want to make proactive decisions. What happens if part of your parking is closed temporarily? You can use conditional messages. You can use mobile signage if you wanted to. You're able to see anomalies. And then you can also shut your garages remotely instead of sending someone out. So what if you could actually close down an entrance using very strategically placed signage versus having to send somebody out to set up, gates and put up a stop sign and all that fun stuff. Next is legacy investment. So, managing parking is hard. A lot of customers have spent money on many technologies to fix it without success. And so the solution here is it's flexible. It has to be a flexible solution that lets you leverage what you already have, and it should be open platform. And then the old best versus best fit question. There's a lot of technical debate in the industry about the best technology, and it sometimes leaves the industry at odds. Customers are tired of trying to manage more and more complex systems. They're really looking for a solution, and I would put that in all caps because that's really my focus, is it's a solution that solves their problem. Versus, complexity does not always equal the best fit. And then complexity. So we hear a lot of conversations about the Internet of Things, about real-time data, predictive analytics, all that good stuff. Well, at the end of it, it has to be something that people can actually use, both from the administration side. So if you're the parking administrator at a company or a university, you obviously want it to be simple. You want to be able to grab the data simply. You want to be able to present the data. But if you're a parker or a visitor, you need it to be simple too. It shouldn't be something that completely, twists your brain when you're trying to just park a car. Parking has become a bigger and bigger problem for universities, corporate campuses, hospitals. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy for people to circle trying to find parking. And then it takes a ton of money and resources for organizations to manage those environments. And then come to find out the solutions that you were offered and that you implemented hadn't solved the problems. And so, if you have legacy investments, if you have things that already sit on your campus today, you paid for those, and we should figure out a way to integrate those into the new technology that's coming down the line and some of the platforms that are available. So, after all that, these are my points here. I would focus on certainty, not probability. I would look at accuracy versus estimates. Know your availability down to the last car. I would look at accuracy versus estimates. Knowing your availability down to the last car, but also, being able to take information that you may have captured on an Excel spreadsheet and start to do some comparisons and see, how close you are and what the real numbers are. And then look at parking data as a more exact data set. So we carry exact data sets for a lot of things in organizations. And I think that parking, that's something that has finally made its way to that level. And I think that as we start to do more infrastructure or see more infrastructure development, both in municipalities, universities, corporate environments, parking impacts a lot of that. So, whether you are, looking to make a profit or whether you're planning infrastructure, you need true data. I mean, that's just at the end of the day, that's a must. And so, how do we get true data? We developed this little line, or this little, I guess you'd call it a roadmap of how we get there. And we tend to think that the best path to true data is a cloud-based system. You don't want servers. You don't want to have to do manual updates. You don't want to have to have manual field service. You want it done quickly and remotely. You want to be able to tie in other systems for greater benefits. So if you have an ALPR and a permitting system, but you want to install a accounting system, tie them in. They should be able to just be added to your cloud-based platform. And then this is probably the biggest question. What do you want the data to do for you? Do you want to monitor and manage pay-to-park spots so you can set rates and pricing? Do you want to simply capture the number of people who park on your campus and where too many people park in the visitor lot who are employees? Do people park in handicap parking, expectant mother parking? You can do that with the proper mix of sensors and wayfinding, but there's also this thing that comes from both of those, and that's policy. So you can actually help develop policies. So some of the questions to ask, and this is based on meetings that we've gone into and conversations that we've had with our prospects and clients. The first one that we like to take a look at is, what does the physical infrastructure look like? I mean, do you have a mix? Is it all garages, or is it garages and surface lots? Do you have defined entries or open access? Meaning, do you have this is where you enter, this is where you exit, or is there a enter-exit opportunity with a single lane of road? Do you use lane delineators? Do you separate things off using a delineator system? Or do you have design restrictions? This is a big one. So, everybody wants all this tech, high-tech equipment and sensors and whatnot. They want to install it, put up some really cool signage, and then you find out there's design restrictions. Go through the homework, or do your homework, and find out all of this before you kind of go down the road of starting to choose your sensor and your solution, because you may not have a massive impact, but there may be some considerations that come from having that conversation. Do you need to count both spaces and zones? So if you have one of these giant corporate parking garages where you can enter at one side and you can exit at the other, and you park somewhere in between, do you want to track what zones are experiencing the most traffic, or where do most people choose to park? That's worth taking a look at. Do you want to count spaces individually? There's a lot of good systems out there now that will not only help you count the spaces, but they'll also provide information as to what spaces are open and what spaces are closed. What are your signage requirements? Do you need just standard count and availability signage, or do you need a monument board that tells you levels and availability on each level? Or do you need signage that tells you not only parking, but gives corporate messaging? If you close down an entrance because you're putting in new glass or something, do you want to post that alongside your parking information? There's a lot of options available out there in terms of signage. And the other question is, do you need signage at all? Could you do it with a red-green bollard system that just basically says, nope, no parking here, or yes, there is parking here? Do you have existing counting equipment? I mean, that's a great question. Do I already have something that counts people coming in and out, and I'm just not getting data from it? That's something that you should be able to integrate into your platform. What kind of reports do you need? This is always a loaded question as well, because we'll ask and say, well, we typically will say, well, what kind of data are you looking for? And the response often is, well, I want all the data. And you really don't want all the data, because that's like a big fire hose. What you really want is to start thinking strategically. What do you want initially? What matters to you the most today? and then start to build out your data, your reporting needs from that point. And you'll find that you'll develop a pretty healthy number of reports as you move through the process. And then connected to that is, what kind of forecasting should I be doing? And to start, I think that what you really want to do is start building a data term, so 3 to 6 months of data, and then you can start taking a look at that, and then you can actually, that can actually drive the type of forecasting that you want to do. So, after all of that, I would say this, look at your project as a solution and not as a one-size-fits-all device, or a piece of software. This is a total solution, and so you're going to find that you don't have to commit to one sensor. And since we started with infrastructure on the preceding slide, that's where we'll begin here as well. You may find your solution is going to require multiple sensors, outdoor lots, garages, single paid spaces, space by space. If you have a combination of a few or all of those, you're going to be looking at your sensors as part of an overall solution. Sensors with accuracy levels that you need to dynamically route traffic and parkers to the right place. That's very helpful. So, that could be something as simple as a puck in the pavement. It could be a laser counter. It could be ALPR. Some folks they do all of their access control and counting through ALPR. There's a number of ways to do this. Newer technologies are probably less intrusive on infrastructure. Optical laser systems, you can install them using existing power in the ceiling of a garage, and you can often have an entire garage outfitted and calibrated in a day or two. Guidance. So this is kind of a loaded subject because guidance comes in a lot of forms. Across the board, you want to understand what guidance and wayfinding should look like at your location. You want to develop your path to available parking. The importance of signage. How are you telling people where the available parking is? And is your signage simple enough to read, but does it provide enough information when people actually take the time to look at it? You want to keep eyes on the road, and you don't want to encourage slow or stop behavior. So you don't necessarily want to have something that causes somebody to have to slow down, hold up traffic, or potentially not even look in front of them because they're looking at the sign and they end up hitting somebody. You want your signage to have a healthy mix of information at a glance and get people moving. And it's the right solution for the right need. So what I mean by that is some people that I've spoken to, especially on the corporate side, have said, well, do I even need to have signs? Could I just do it with red, green lights? And in some cases, they do. In other cases, they don't put signage out until they really need it, so they'll get a mobile sign, and they'll just roll that out if they have a heavy traffic day, or if their visitor log shows to be pretty heavy on a particular day, they may put up a mobile sign, and that would direct people to visitor parking. It comes in a lot of different flavors. And then there's also the triggering of devices. So, excuse me, more effective than email is being able to let people know instantly that parking or a zone is crowded. So you can do that through an app. You can do that through like a traditional parking app. You could do it through a corporate, like an intranet app, where they can get information right away. You could do it through social media, text messaging. We've seen people do it through a lot of different ways. Conditional messaging, same thing. It's empowerment. And again, you can do that through signage, apps, websites, SMS. Data and reporting, again, this is something where, it's relatively new in a pretty old industry. Data shouldn't really just live in your forecasting tool. Like you should be able to present this data to your customers in the form of availability, in the form of preparing for what parking may look like the next day, based on trends. So do more people park at your campus on Wednesday versus Thursday? Do they all get there by 8:30? If you have a telecommuting policy, is there a group of people who you could give that to as an option on heavy parking days if they don't need to be in the office? That data is very powerful, but it's only powerful if you unharness it. And then you need a goal. I mean, yeah, a lot of people will implement technology and never have a goal for what they're going to do with the information they get from it. So what's your counting availability goal? Do you want to know how many vehicles enter-exit? Or do you want to know, when? Or do you want to know what are the peak periods or what are the peak days? And do you want to be able to take a look at your existing entries and exits before you do something like consolidate regional offices into a corporate headquarters? I mean, you see that sometimes where a corporate HQ will close down regional offices, bring everybody onto the corporate campus, and then the parking is absolutely, it's untenable. Analytics, this is also part of the data and reporting structure. Analytics break through anecdotal conversations. It's really nice when you're having a conversation and you can come to a meeting with real facts. And so, analytics break through all of the noise and the what ifs and the I thinks. It's hard numbers. And when you're doing parking analysis, being able to accurately forecast availability, it's kind of a holy grail, but we're getting closer. You can make infrastructure and parking planning a priority. You can make much better decisions about where to place your headcount. That goes back to what I was talking about with the corporate campuses and consolidation that's occurring in some markets. Where are your new employees going to park? I mean, that's a huge question. It's a data-specific contributor to the overall conversation about what things are costing you on your campus. In terms of parking and in terms of, visitors, staff, parkers. And in the case of things like retail, if you're able to take a look at that and say, hey, you know what, we're losing 100 potential retail customers a day because they can't find parking or because it's too hard. I mean, you can actually assign a cost to that. And then the other thing is you're also able to understand the data. The data interpretation that comes with a reporting tool is critical, and that's where you want to partner with whoever you work with on providing you with, not only the data and the reporting, but a process to which you're going to interpret that. So anybody who you work with, you should consider them a partner and make them come to the table with some solutions as well and some guidance. So why? Why all of this? I think that in regard to, why I guess I said why all of this, and all of this really comes down to real-time data. So, for parkers, I mean, real-time data and presentation of that data, it helps them save time, energy, effort. They don't have to stress over where they're going to park, because now they're able to reserve it, they can pay for it, and they can access it. And they can do all of that in real time if you have a real-time data option for them, or actually if you just use that as your focal point. Operators. Well, this is pretty cool for operators, because now they can kind of take their garages and their revenue back. They take control over the operation again. They maximize their revenue and their profits, and they reduce costs. And they take more of the money that they sell the space for. So, parking apps do a great thing. I use them, I'd say, a couple times a week. But I think that for operators, they've always wanted to get the best price for their spaces. And if they were to put in a real-time availability system that they could use to drive folks to their own apps and drive a little bit more revenue for themselves, I think there would be a tremendous benefit. cities, reducing congestion is fantastic. I mean, I live in downtown Chicago. I've been to a lot of major cities. Traffic it's a nightmare once you get down into a downtown area in the morning or the rush afternoon. One thing that you can do with real-time data is actually take traffic flow. You can take data from the parking facilities within your heavily traveled business districts, and you can present that to people in real time, saying, if State Street's packed, then you route them over to Dearborn or LaSalle. I mean, that's an example here in Chicago where cities that focus on reducing congestion and traffic density are going to have a much happier driving public, and they're actually going to have a healthier city because you won't have the emissions that are given off by cars that are just sitting there. You won't have increased stress levels. It impacts everybody positively. Companies and facilities, we talked about this. Employees want to get into their seats. They want to start working. They want to be productive, and nobody likes to start the day off stressed out. Make it easy for them to find available parking quickly, get them into the spot, and then, get them into the office. IT, IT always has a seat at the table because, the ability to interface with something like a employee system, an employee ID system, a campus security system, a parking gate system. IT is going to be at the table for that, and they're actually going to provide a lot of guidance in terms of what works from a integration standpoint, and then also what works from a information security standpoint. And then they're also going to help you to ensure that whatever you put in place is going to be future-proofed, because that's going to impact them down the line as well. And then decision makers and planners. I mean, leveraging data for proactive decision making, that's what we all want to do. We all would like to have a crystal ball effect from the data that we collect. And the exciting thing about real-time parking availability and real-time data about what's going on in your facilities is that after a while, and now that we have machine learning and predictive analytics coming into play, you can come pretty close. Like you can actually sit and take a look at your data in 6 months to a year, and you can see what your trends look like. And then you can start to accurately forecast and have your tool set start to do some of that forecasting for you. So you never have to guess what things are going to look like from year to year. And if you do have a major event like an office consolidation, you at least know what to expect and you can plan for that. And that's where we come in. All Traffic Solutions, we have developed what we call Parking Cloud. We work with, I would say, just about any third-party data set, sensors, legacy devices, publicly available data sets. We are able to integrate with that to collect that data. And then we do analytics and reporting. We can combine data sets so that we can take a look at how everything works with one another and how traffic data may impact parking data and vice versa. We have a machine learning engine, and then all of that filters out to our guidance, guidance and wayfinding system, reservation and mobile payments, park systems. We can integrate with all of it, and we really remove the burden for you of having to build out your own system, of having to use locally based systems that you might have to do upgrades or service. We handle all of that in real time in the cloud, and so we make this as maintenance free and as hands off for you as possible, so you can just focus on collecting the data. We've spent a lot of time building this out, And we have had a lot of experience with integrating with a number of sensors, and so we make this a true solution versus, you know, just a one-stop or a one-size-fits-all that really doesn't do much for anybody. And with that, I'll send it back to Inga.
Well, thanks a lot, Jim, for your time and all the great information today. Please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Jim at jrhodes@alltrafficsolutions.com, or you can just you can email sales@alltrafficsolutions.com as well, or give us a call at the number on the screen. We'll also be at IPI. Please stop by booth 1511 to learn more. And with that, this concludes our presentation for today. Thanks so much for attending, and look forward to speaking with you soon.